Welcome to Rates and Barrels, Thursday, August 28th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Sayers, Trevor May here with you on this episode. We got some baseball news you should know. The Brewers are down their closer, at least for a couple of weeks, perhaps longer. Trevor Megill is on the shelf with a flexor strain. Luis Robert is hurt again. His season is likely over. On a positive note, Bryan Woo looks really good. We'll dig into what he's doing that's enabling him to pitch really at a level that's among the league's best this year. Some really interesting numbers behind what Bryan Woo has done. We're going to check in on the A's. They're playing great right now, 20-10 in their last 30 games. Only two teams are as good or better during that span. Try to figure out what the A's might have learned while in West Sacramento in year one of question mark. I'm going to leave that open-ended. I think they could be there much longer than they anticipated. We're going to kick around the idea of in-season tournaments because we're in that funny part of the schedule where, maybe Major League Baseball could do something to entice folks to get excited leading into the September stretch run. We'll talk about how that might work. We got some mailbag questions and a Name That Dude, which surely will cheer me up. I was trying to figure out, guys, before the show, why I was in such a bad mood. I threw out a couple of ideas pre-show, and then I realized my coffee right now is in the complete in-between temperature. It is cooled off to the point where it is no longer hot. It is not iced down to be cold. That is like having a pebble in your shoe and then drinking it. That is exactly where I'm living right now, and that is why I'm in a bad mood. So we're going to fix that over the course of the next hour.
Well, you just put me in a bad mood. Name That Dude. Ugh.
Yeah, see, I transferred it to
fix
you.
That, by the way, you going to cool it down or heat it up or what?
Well,
right there in front of you.
While I'm recording, there's no solution, man. Like a microwave. I can't put it in the microwave. I should get a microwave down here in my office. The problem is it's in a Yeti, so I couldn't microwave it in the Yeti, and I don't have an ice machine, so I'm absolutely screwed for the next hour. I just can't drink it. I have to go fix it after the show. That's my plan. We need an invention that can solve it.
And be like, there is caffeine in there, and I'm going to drink it.
You're gonna see me lie on screen when you see the 15 minutes in, goes to the Yeti, drinks it, and forgets that it's again in that terrible temperature. Which reminds me of, did you guys watch the show Primo by chance? It was an Amazon Prime show. It came out maybe 2 years ago now. Just one season. Good show. Anyway, two uncles are fighting. One gets caught up on the roof. So the guy that traps him up there tosses him a bottle of water. It's actually vinegar. Takes a sip. He's like, oh, gross. This is vinegar. Stands up there for a few minutes, forgets it's vinegar, takes a second sip. That's going to be me with my coffee. And that is my endorsement. Primo should have got a second season. It's worth the watch. A little coming of age sort of story, but good little comedy on Prime. All right. Let's get to some news you should know. We'll start with Trevor Megill. He's on the IL with a grade 1 flexor strain. In his words, he's likely to be back after the 15-day minimum, but it's a flexor strain. You never know for sure until you start ramping up again. Abner Uribe is probably the closer in the interim, but the question I have for you guys is how good is this Brewers bullpen without Megill? And this is related a little bit to what we talked about with Randy Rodriguez earlier in the week. You take the best reliever out of a good bullpen, and it goes from an A to a B or a B to a C in a lot of cases. So how much does Megill's absence hurt this Brewers relief unit, I
mean, I think that you've got guys who can step in, and so if you do the chair switching, you're like, oh well, I think Abner Uribe absolutely has the stuff of a closer, and so that's fine. And then Aaron Ashby, in this conversion is showing us, how good of a setup type guy he can be. I know they're using him in different roles, but I think in this situation, you make him a setup guy. Shelby Miller can help him set up. And you've got still some good depth pieces in Koenig and Nick Mears, and there's good pieces here. But one thing I wanted to point out was just that the Brewers have thrown the second most innings or third most innings as a relief crew in baseball, and so when you do the top of the bullpen, you're like, oh, this is the same. It'll be fine. Where it actually will hurt them is more the bridge guys. They're going to have to see a lot more Tobias Myers in that group, I think. Maybe Chad Patrick if he's in the big leagues. I don't even know if he is. He's Chad Patrick.
He's been up and down a few times. He started Sunday's game against the Giants.
You may need to call him up to be a bridge guy like Tobias Myers because you're going to need, the way the Brewers work, you need guys pitching in the 5th and 6th sometimes. And it's obvious from the bulk that they've used in the past. So, that's where it might suffer a little bit. But again, they've built up so much pitching depth that Chad Patrick and Tobias Myers, being your bridge guys, they were your like 4th and 5th starters to begin the season.
Yeah, I think it puts increased importance on Shelby Miller, who they quietly acquired at the trade deadline too.
Definitely.
Yeah, losing the peak of your pyramid is never a good thing, but I think the Brewers have shown over since like the last decade or so that they just constantly have a guy on deck that can step up and take the job. Uribe has like 31 holds or something at this point, so he's had no problem getting the job done in the inning and holding the lead. So I think that if there's a team that can handle losing a closer for a little bit of time, it's probably these guys. So, but obviously, ideally you want him back. But yeah, flexor strains are usually just a absolute roll of the dice. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 6 months. You just don't know.
Right. Yeah, it could impact them come playoff time for all we know, but we'll see where things go from here. And it's not just Megill down right now. DL Hall's on the IL. Grant Anderson, who's been pretty heavily used, is banged up, so it is going to test guys like Myers. Easton McGee's on the roster right now. So I think it does kind of take what was maybe a lower end A unit with Megill in it. It does knock it down to that sort of B level for now, and it could get a little worse if another injury or two befalls them in the next couple of weeks. Eric Fetty worked in long relief behind Ashby as a starter on Wednesday. They didn't win that game, but that's where the Brewers are at right now, just trying to hold together. Robert Gasser is going to come off the IL at some point down the stretch. That could be a nice addition for them in some capacity as well. Let's get to Luis Robert. Unfortunately, he is hurt again. His season is likely over. It's a grade 2 hamstring strain. Trevor, I can't even imagine how you would return from a grade 2 hamstring strain with less than a month in the season. That's always a 4+ week injury if you actually manage it correctly. And when you factor in all the injuries Luis Robert has dealt with over the course of his career, and you factor in where the White Sox are at right now, why on earth would they even try to bring him back this year? The bigger question, though, is they have a club option for him for 2026, and they seem pretty intent on picking it up. We thought maybe they would trade him at the trade deadline, and they didn't. How good is Luis Robert at this point, though? Like, a $20 million club option to me is not an obvious go ahead and pick it up sort of thing. Look at the results the last 2 years. A 287 WOBA the last 2 years combined, nearly a 30% K rate, and I mentioned the injuries. He's had a hard time staying healthy.
Yeah, I don't know what the obsession is. I understand he's like, you just watch him play. You're like, this guy is like in a league of his own athletically, even on a major league field. But like, it has to bear out the results have to happen. But at the same time, just from my feeling from playing against that team for a long time, and he was on it, and I feel like the very similar thing happened with like Yohan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez. Like, the team kind of was not really taking a step forward, and they weren't really getting better. They were just kind of treading water, and they made the playoffs once, and then that's about it.
And all three of those guys were hurt all the time too.
Yeah, and they were hurt all the time too. But like anecdotally, and this is just what I've heard around, it's hard to stay motivated in a place that just you feel kind of stuck. Guys who've been traded to there, and Benintendi has kind of alluded to a little bit of this sometimes too. Just you're just kind of hanging out. And when that happens, like, your motivation to stay healthy, or just like if something's a little bit tweaked or not feeling good, you're like, well, I'll just go on the IL, because like who cares? Like, who cares? So we're going to be the same team either way. And it's been like that for a while. We had all the way back to the weird Adam LaRoche thing with his kids, and the Sale chopping up uniforms. Like, they're just like, there's been a disconnect between the players and the organization that doesn't seem to be healed much. And so, like, it looks from a team playing sometimes like it's just kind of like lackadaisical in a way that we can't blame, because we've all felt that way before. And if we were in that situation, we can't say that we wouldn't also have a level of that
somewhere
at
where
times.
we're playing out the string or whatever,
Yeah, you're just kind of playing it out. And the thing is weird about Robert, I think that if he went to a group that was like, I don't want to say it, if he was with the Dodgers, you can't play like that. Like, you kind of, the tide raises all boats a little bit. And if he's put in a different situation, I would not be surprised if, obviously, the injury thing is not going to go away, but he might stay healthier longer. He might have more incentive to like be on the field and like play 162. And and fit into the group and win. I want to see what change of scenery would look for him. I just really think we could see a completely different Luis Robert in a different place, and it would be pretty stark and pretty crazy immediately. I can't shake that feeling that would happen. Of course, what's that based on? I don't know, vibes, but I want to see it.
Like in terms of like, you know, how better organizations run and how worse organizations run, like I could see like having him consult with the pitching biomechanics guys, because like the list of things that have gone wrong with him, I mean, a hip reoccurring issue, 21, 23, and 24, a pectoral injury. I know that's upper body, but so many of these lower body, foot issues in 2020, groin 2021, 22, and 23, knee 21 and 23, leg and quad 23, hip, hamstring, multiple hamstring issues. Like I would be like talking to the biomechanist and be like, is there something wrong here in the way he moves, or like the way he trains for the way he moves? You know what I mean? Like maybe, you know, maybe this guy is like really explosive and we need to work on, it needs to be like yoga and Pilates, and like it needs to be, you know, flexibility, and like, or maybe he's out of whack, you know, too forward, too back, like the way that you were talking about how you would talk to someone who's rehabbing, a young player who's rehabbing, sort of trying to find balance in their body, right? Like I would look at this and say, there's absolutely something out of balance in this body. And I don't have the ability to tell you what it is, but like, I do think there are probably some teams that are better at telling you what it is than others, you know, and better at being like, here's a good plan of attack for, you know, how you need to work out. They've had these guys, they've had these injury concerns, and they haven't really done any better. Now, we've seen some of these guys leave and have the same injuries in other places, like Moncada, just as injured, but he also went to Anaheim, so it's not like he went somewhere that
was like, an upgrade. Oh, yeah, that was probably the other place that is
lateral,
exactly like Chicago. Yeah.
I think in my mind, those two franchises are so similar, right? You got a World Series, what 20 plus years now in the rearview mirror for the Angels, 20 years out now from the White Sox. Owner that is
one right away,
loyal,
and hasn't won since.
Like it just
both
it's
of them are the same.
Former players from like the last time they won, like, you know, running things in different places. And
Yep. Yeah, very similar orgs. Every time I think of one, the other one starts to creep in somehow. They end up with a lot of the same types of players. Guys change those two orgs. It's weird. But to Trevor's initial point, the way Robert's doing this, it's like the toolsiest way you can be a one-war player. It's bizarre. Like, I get why other teams would be interested. I have a hard time believing things are going to be different if they just keep running it back over and over again. In their minds, they're saying, no, we believe he can be that guy. If we
still
pick up
only
the option,
28.
we can trade him in June or July next year, and it'll help. It's like, well, I don't know. Will it actually help? Like, I don't think they would have got that much for him if they traded him this year. So unless he is completely healthy for 4 months and has one of those,
needs to look like 2023 again
years.
when he was like a 4-win player. Somebody would trade for that, especially if they need help in center field. But like a guy like this, you know, I think there's an open question too, is like, maybe you should stop playing center field. Like, remember when Eloy got hurt, you know, and then they were like, you should stop playing in the field. And then he was just a DH, you know? Like,
he was truly bad at playing left field though, too.
I mean, I've seen him on 2 different occasions backpedal into the wall on a homer. So it was pretty apparent. He was Magellan out there just trying to find a route. He's tried hard. I'll be honest. He always gave great effort. He was just like, dude, there's a warning track for a reason. You are ignoring it.
But yeah, the question for me with Robert, is he as good as we thought he was? Like, he could still be, but I don't think it's happening for him in 2026 with the White Sox. We need a change of scenery if it's going to happen at all. Is he good is the question some people might be asking with Bryan Woo. How good is he? Is he elite? I mean, this is remarkable what he's been able to put together. I look back since the start of last season. Bryan Woo, 9th in ERA. This is among pitchers with 200-plus innings, so starters only. A 2.93 ERA during that span, tied for 2nd in WHIP with a .93. He's in the top 20 in K-minus BB percentage as well. You know, you threw this at me in Slack. You said, how is he doing this with basically 2 fastballs and a slider? So as you looked closer at Bryan Woo, like, what conclusion did you come to?
I think it's command. And we can start really quickly at the top level, which is the Stuff Plus model comps. I think like the model comps here. So Bryan Woo has moved into the top 10 in pitching plus, and in my ranks, I think I had him 11 and was like, man, he should maybe be in the top 10. And when you start to look at his combination of stuff and command, you realize I think the comp is staring me in the face right there. I think it's Logan Webb. It's not the upper end stuff. I think because his secondary is not, the craziest. Like it's not Tarek Skubal's like changeup or any of Wheeler's breaking balls or DeGrom's crazy slider. It's it's a pretty good slider. And like Logan Webb, he's found this like pitching mix of fastballs that really works. And I think we've seen Logan Webb's four seam and cutter make a lot of a difference to making his whole fastball approach work. But then, I was like, well, how do you, as Bryan Woo, pitch to a lefty? Like you've got a four seam fastball, a sinker, and a slider for the most part. And I think the answer has to be how he plays the fastballs off each other. So on the left, here's the four seam heat map, and it's exactly what you'd expect a righty to throw four seams to lefties, just up in the zone, sometimes like middle-ish, and then up off of that. That's a vanilla heat map for me. Like nothing really stands out about that to me. And the results are pretty good. 305 slugging, 25% whiff. That's pretty good. So sinkers you don't normally throw against lefties. He's thrown 181 of them. So he's thrown a fair amount of sinkers. And I actually think the sinkers are really important to the four seam that has this kind of vanilla location. I think the sinkers are helping the four seam play up. And the reason I say this is, Woo has three important locations on a sinker. One, front door. So he's throwing the sinker at the hitter and it comes over the plate. Now that's not going to show up in the whiff numbers. They're bad whiff numbers. You're going to get a lot of called strikes that way. But you see that he throws the four seam high. The two seam high. So he's throwing the two seam and the four seam high with very different movements. So those two pitches are playing off each other. And then he also throws a four seam middle and a sinker away that probably looks like that four seam middle. So he has a couple combos of where he's throwing the four seam and the two seam where they look the same coming in and then they banana peel off of each other. And one is high where the four seam stays true and the two seam moves a little bit, and then sort of middle where the four seam stays middle and the two seam dives to the corner. So I think the real answer in the end is command, and the changeup heat map really put it together. This is the changeup heat map for him. It's not the most beautiful changeup by movement, but god dang if he doesn't really ever hang it. These are individual pitches you're looking at. I did the smoothing so you could really see it. He is dotting the bottom of the strike zone with his changeup. So I think the answer is playing the two fastballs off each other with command. I do wonder though, how many legs how long of the legs does that have? Is this something that batters can figure out? And I wonder what you guys think about longevity of an approach like this.
So I think you're right on. You nailed it in that it is almost exclusively command related. And I think it's an interesting way to think about this. And honestly, other guys that have become enigmas to us too, like Andrew Abbott, same type of thing. I think if we apply how we look at these guys, because I think what we do in this show and what we do with statistics, what the point of them are, especially like with the stuff on Savant, is it's about projecting forward, backwards. Are we doing stuff? Is there more there? Are you underperforming? How
long can they do this? Yeah.
And then what would have to happen for longevity? If this group of things we're seeing is figured out at some point, what could happen then to keep people off of it again? And because he has such great command, he's the only thing he really does elite in terms of Savant is walk rate, which he needs to be able to do. But what we're seeing is an optimized pitcher. This is without having an elite pitch for swing and miss, or like you mentioned the Skuballs and stuff. Like this is throwing 25 straight 6-inning outings is the best version of Bryan. We're seeing the best version of Bryan Woo. That's what the Mariners are doing super well, because he's above average on just about average or above average on just about every single category without anything jumping off the page or being a top 10% really in anything. So the question I like to ask is, If I'm looking at a guy and I want to then project what the future is going to look like how much better can this guy get with the arsenal we see in front of us right now? With like factoring in, and maybe this is just anecdotal and you're just kind of assuming some stuff, but like with league average luck, without either being unlucky or lucky, what would that look like? Is there any glaring things, or is this what it is? And for him, and what it has been, is he just throws the ball where he wants it, and he uses his pitches off each other, and he's a great idea of what it is. But do I think is there more beyond this? Is there a Cy Young level? I don't think so. I think that Bryan Woo doesn't have the stuff to do that without being very lucky. He would have to get really lucky, because there is an element of luck that makes him successful in the park he plays in, and it just happens to line up that way. But he puts himself in a position to get lucky a lot when he needs to, and then not get hurt as much when he's unlucky. Like, that is kind of the name of the game of being a Bryan Woo, or even an Andrew Abbott, who does something very similar. He doesn't have anything elite. There's nothing that jumps off the page. He just is optimized and is making the right decisions because he has that understanding early in his career, and then it's rinse and repeat. But like, we think Logan Webb's a great comp because he's got good movement stuff, but he's not a strikeout guy. He doesn't really take over games. He eats innings and gets deep into games. That's his number one thing. Is that a true ace? Sometimes. Most of the time, though, that's a good number two. And you want a guy who takes over games and gives up 2 hits in 8 innings and strikes out 12. Like, that's an ace these days. But Logan Webb is a great pitcher who's going to be top 10 in terms of production every single year because he throws so many innings and stays healthy. And that's what I think that's the ceiling for Bryan Woo. But I just think he's a 2-3, and he's going to end up being a 2-3. There's going to be guys with better stuff that are the number one. The Logan Gilbert dialed in is always going to be better than Bryan Woo.
Yeah, that might be true.
It's just so interesting when you look at how good the results have been for Woo. But yeah, optimizing what he has and just kind of having everything working as well as it can, that certainly explains how he's maybe exceeded expectations at this point. And then the shelf life question, I guess, is if you don't think that slider is going to be something he could use more eventually, like I would think about it in terms of losing velocity, right? Eventually he's going to lose a little velo and those fastballs will be a little easier to hit. Can he throw the slider more? Is it good enough to get away with that? Or is it fitting in perfectly right now at its current usage? Is it as effective as it can be, like peak effectiveness, because he doesn't throw it too much?
Yeah, I mean, that's a thing that Stuff Plus tries to answer by saying what's the inherent quality of this pitch, and it says that, you know, his sweeper is really good and his slider is just okay. And that's what I was also saying, like 81 Stuff Plus on the changeup, 94 on the slider. It's, you know, and then 120 on the sweeper. It's saying, yeah, you could throw the sweeper a lot more, but the league is getting better at sweepers. You know, you don't command the sweeper as well. And in fact, it's the only pitch that he has that he doesn't command at an elite rate. And he has this game built on command. So I don't know how, like, throwing the sweeper more, the sweeper, that might set him off in a weird direction. So I would focus on the changeup. Like, if he could have, you know, like 105 Stuff Plus changeup, you know, it's 20 points better. That's a big ask. But that would be, I think, a big way forward, especially if you could still command it like he does. So, like if he could try a kick change, or if there's a splitter. And I know that, you know, when I talked to Bryan Woo this spring, when he was talking about improving and what he was thinking about, he said he talked to Luis Castillo all the time about his changeup. So I know that, like, I think Bryan Woo is probably searching the most on the changeup. Because everything else is just so dialed in. You know, would you want him to throw more sweepers if he doesn't command it as well? Like, would you give up, 3 points of walk rate in order to bump him up into that 27-28% K rate? Would that be a good offset? And is that a good idea? So that's like, I think, kind of the main question is, what do you do with the sweeper, and can you improve that changeup at all? But also know that he's been thinking about the changeup his whole damn life. You know, he's been trying to make that pitch better forever. You know, he's been like hanging out with Luis Castillo, being like, please just give me some of that pixie dust on the changeup. You know,
does the way his velocity is just up across the board, right? I mean, it's just nothing. He has nothing truly off speed. Everything, the sweeper's 85.1 on average, the fastball's 95.7. So everything's within 10 miles per
90,
hour.
Yeah, or 89, 90, yeah.
Does he run into a problem eventually because of that? Does he
I don't
need
know,
something that's even slower to throw off timing eventually?
With the great command, he's fine. Like,
Yeah. I don't know. It just struck me as a little bit, because we talked about it with Taj Bradley a lot. Everything Taj Bradley throws is hard, and he doesn't command. The difference is they are opposite ends of the command spectrum. Taj Bradley, as little command as a starter can have. Bryan Woo, much closer to top of the scale command, so that's a big part of the difference. But that's just one thing that looks a little odd about Woo's arsenal to me.
And for me, like this is more of like a fantasy concern, but I'm sure it's for Bryan as a concern as well. It's just a thing he thinks about is just his relationship with bulk and staying healthy, and like just keeping everything in line. 2022, we had 57 minor league innings. 2023, 87. 2024, between the minors and the big leagues, we had 135 for Woo. So that's a big jump forward, 23 to 24, 87 to 135. And then this year he's going to go from 135 to 200, 180. And so I just think there's I don't know how to define that level of concern. I know that I have some concern for how he holds up, just because some of the stuff that we talked about with Trevor about like how he's so hypermobile and like, he has to work hard to kind of stay in his lanes, but he's also demonstrated some injury risk in the past.
But it's a good situation right now in Seattle with Woo as basically the 3 behind Gilbert and Kirby. That is a loaded trio up top, given the results Woo has been putting up. Let's stay in the AL West for a bit. Let's talk about what we've learned about the A's and Sutter Health Park over the course of this year. Checking in on West Sacramento. Maybe they were front of mind for me because I was up late this week and they had the home series against the Tigers, which they swept. There were some pretty wild finishes there. Wild in part because the A's bullpen has less command than any bullpen in the league. I texted you guys as soon as I was watching Elvis Alvarado, I think, and like, wow, if this guy just had a little command, he could be completely filthy. But it's a problem up and down that relief corps right now. I'll throw it to you first, Trevor. What have you learned about this team and playing in West Sacramento this year? What's caught your eye?
I mean, there's a ton of stuff. First of all, I know this is. I don't think we've had a Luis Severino comment in the paper this month about how the park's a joke. But he was constantly doing that and knowing he was on a 3-year deal and trying to move the needle a little bit. I'm like, all right, guys, let's speed this thing up. Let's get us out of here, even though like Las Vegas is going to be any better. But at
least it'll be a major league field.
He's got a 3.17 ERA on the road this year.
Yeah. He's a 3.17 now?
He's got a 3.17 on the road and a 6.34 at home. He is literally
understand that
double.
Frustration. Yeah, and he's getting balls that got going into the corner. He's got a couple things that are happening, like homers and then like doubles into corners and stuff that he just doesn't get anywhere else, and it's really frustrating him. But anyway, one thing that has struck me and doesn't surprise me one bit, because the A's always do this. This happens every 5 years, and they get a young core that comes, guys that maybe aren't as highly touted as we think they are in the top 100 prospects, and we're not like drooling over them all the time. It was also the recent one was Olsen, Matt Chapman, and Chris Davis with a K. Yeah. Old Chris Davis out there hitting 247 and a bunch of homers every year. You could throw Piscotty came and helped, and then they had their fourth outfielder Pinder running around hitting homer. Like that's just kind of how they rocked and got to the playoffs. But they had that middle of the lineup, and now they have Kurtz and Jacob Wilson. And then they grabbed a guy who came into his own in Rooker. So like they have a potent offense. It's a scary offense to face. Also, can we give a little bit of love to Shea Langoliers? I mean, the guy's hitting the ball.
Oh my God. He
so hard.
Went to work on that K percentage, and now he's like a complete player.
It's great. If you go look since he's a rookie, all of those numbers have just incrementally got a little bit better every single year. And he's starting to cover those holes up, but he's sticking with what he does well. That guy is going to be, I think, one of the, you can make a case for one of the best offensive catchers in the league now, but like just overall, I think he's going to be one of the top 5 catchers we'll be talking about for a few years. He just is turning into that. So for them to score as many runs as they can, I think they would have also had a very potent offense in the Coliseum too. I just think they're a good offensive team. It just comes down to where are we going to settle in? Where's the core of pitching going to come from? Like, where are we going to get our Sonny Gray, our like these guys who are consistently, we have our 1, 2, and 3 that are always there, and they were built up. The Mulders, I mean, I know Mulder, Zito, and Hudson probably is a lot to ask for, but that is another element, and they're just missing that. If they get that though, like they're now back at possibly winning this division, and nothing really nominally has changed in terms of management and coaching and anything. I just really think that letting these guys marinate and bake all together is kind of their MO, and they're doing it again. And it doesn't surprise me one bit, but it is hard to kind of pull apart what the park is doing and what the guys are doing. But for them to finish strong when, kind of the trade deadline gets over with, and now we can just kind of play. They kind of do this every year. We did this in 2023. We're terrible, and we still went like 500 in our last 45 games or something, and we won 50. So like, if that tells you anything, it's when guys kind of start to feel comfortable, feel like they're part of the team, and that's what we're seeing now as well. So a lot to be excited about. I really like watching these guys. I text them still regularly, like, dude, like keep Shea, like if you're listening, Shea, stop ghosting me. But I still am really enjoying watching you throw. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. These guys are controllable, and I didn't even mention Lawrence Butler. So like I just think that they could be a top offense very, very soon. And pitching just needs to get a little bit better.
I looked it up before too. I wanted to make sure that they weren't just taking advantage of the hitter-friendly environment that Sacramento is. They're top 10 in WOBA at home and on the road. So to your point, it is a legitimately good lineup regardless of home park.
Yeah, I just took a look where I looked at the youngest teams, and I just took the 10 youngest teams and sorted them. The Mariners are at the top. That surprised me actually, because they're one of the 10 youngest teams and they're doing this, but they're not as young as the A's. But the Mariners, Tigers, and A's are the 3 best offenses among the 10 youngest offenses. And you can see that, there's some difference here in how they do it. And the A's do have a little bit of maybe an issue on defense. I kind of think that Jacob Wilson will be a good defender, and that they can figure out center field, and that Shea is a really good defender. So I think that they'll be good up the middle. They don't have, I think, the same problem the Nationals have. They show up on this list as being the very worst defense among the 10 youngest teams, and they're going to have a real resorting process in Washington that I don't think that they're necessarily have to do in Oakland. They may have to put their shortstop at second and put their second baseman at first and kind of move everyone around. I think the A's are pretty good where they are. I don't know if Lawrence Butler's a center fielder. That's maybe my big question, but they've got, other young guys that can try the position. So yeah, I think, being one of the best, 3 young offenses, and then having some room to grow from Zach Geloff and Butler to get back on track. This is a good team offensively, and I share the same concerns. The one thing that about pitching, and one thing that I noticed, I'm looking at the Statcast, 1-year park factors. There's only 2 teams in baseball that have a park factor for balls in play that is above 110, and that's the A's and Coors.
Yeah, Colorado's probably the other one.
Yeah. And it's still a factor of difference. Like, the A's are second with a 110. It's WOBAcon. It's a weighted on base average on contact. You could call it Woe Bacon if you like.
Should call it Woe Bacon.
100%.
Their Woe Bacon park factor is 110. Rockies is 116. And the Dodgers, who are third, is 108. So you can see it's still a level. It's not to the level of concerns as is this a Coors Field where we can't win? But I do have a suggestion for any of the A's front office if they're listening. And I don't know. I know it takes a little bit of money to do something like this. And I know that there are like unintended consequences. But I would consider changing the outfield, changing the walls. And I know you push the walls back to do something about homers, and you create a hole somewhere else. You create more triples, you create more doubles. But I'm looking at these park factors, and the one place it's blue is triples. And so I would be willing to give up a few triples to reduce that home run park factor. The other thing I would spend some money on is the mound. We've heard some real complaints about the mound. We're talking about how hard it is and stuff like that. So I think if you could spend a couple $1 million. Now I know this is the A's. It's asking a lot, but could you make Gage Jump's transition to the major leagues a little bit better? Would you spend $2 million to give yourself 30% chance more likely that Gage Jumps is good off the jump? Would you spend $2 million to make sure that Luis Morales hits his better outcomes than his worst, more than his worst outcomes? Do you think that you could, out of $2 million, could get 0.2 WAR out of your pitching staff because they're a little more comfortable? They're landing better. They like the mound. You're also saying to them something. You're saying, hey, we're trying to help you out. And you said you got a top 10 road WOBA. You got a top 10 road offense. To tell the hitters, man, you guys are just good. Don't worry about this. And I think the hitters would be like, yeah, do it. Like we're losing these games 9-8. Like, do it. So I would look at heat maps. I would look at where the balls are going over the fence that you wouldn't expect them to, and I would change the outfield configuration. And Vivek would be okay with it. Maybe he'd even throw in $1 million to make you guys happy.
Yeah, would a reasonable person do this? Probably. Would John Fisher do this? No, probably not.
Well, I think that they should look at Baltimore. I don't know that reasonable. I don't think that teams have until recently started to thinking about how their actual current team is structured and how their outfield and how their stadium is structured. Mm-hmm. But we've seen sort of recently a real dive for, hey, let's make this a neutral park. And that was part of what's going on in Baltimore. But I think in Baltimore, they were also like, hey, we think our hitters are really good and they're going to survive this. We don't know about our pitchers, so let's make this a little more pitcher friendly. So, and then they, what they did? They undid some of it in Baltimore. They were like, well, maybe we went too far. And so they undid some of it. So I would say
now they're 10 games under. So
yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
A's pitchers are second in home runs allowed at home this season. Only the Orioles have allowed more. There's 4 teams that have given up 100 or more home runs at home.
Move it back.
Yeah. I think with all that young pitching coming up, it makes a lot of sense. It's a good argument. And I think you mentioned Lawrence Butler, his defense. He's not bad in center field. I think you could at least justify continuing to try it. I think he's a plus one BRS out there. Like
it's just sometimes he takes the wrong route or something.
Yeah, but it's not hurting you to the point where you would say, get him out of there, play him in a corner. Let's go find someone who's a really good defensive center fielder and just upgrade that way. I think play it out another year and just see what kind of results you get. I think that'd be an appropriate sort of adjustment or appropriate plan, at least, for how to set things up that way. But this is a really quality lineup. And, you found an oddity with Nick Kurtz that I did not expect.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little treat for the YouTube watchers. But if you follow me on the socials, you might have seen this today. This is that. Just one more time. This is Nick Kurtz's swing, and then a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and there's 2 stick figures there. You can tell it's bats.
It looks really, really similar. And the only reason that they don't map exactly perfectly is because one of these guys is bigger than the other. Nick Kurtz is like 6'7" or something, and Shohei Ohtani is only 6'3". So they don't really stand in the box in the same place either. So that's the only reason these things don't map up perfectly in terms of like tilt, attack angle, bat speed. There's a perfect comp there, and I was just looking through all of the comps for what the way that Kurtz works is by hitting by having a 78 mile an hour bat speed, he actually lets the ball travel because 78 mile bat speed will create opposite field power. Like he hits it out to the opposite field a lot, but it also lets him a little bit longer to see the ball and make the decision. And so that's good for him because he doesn't have the necessarily the very best bat to ball skills. And also a big tilty swing like he has will be vulnerable in different parts of the zone. He is vulnerable at the top of the zone, but he's found some ways to get to some of those balls at the top of the zone. And he does so much damage on anything that isn't the very sort of top sliver of the zone that's what he has in common. And if you look at Ohtani, that's a roadmap for him in terms of like, okay, a slightly elevated strikeout rate, but a good walk rate, and just destroys the ball when he puts it in play. And that's what we've seen out of Kurt so far. So the only other person that works like this on this level in terms of bat speed, tilt, and point of contact is Aaron Judge. So his comps are pretty good.
Yeah, good place to live if you can get up there. I think that explains a lot about how Nick Kurtz has been so good right from the jump here in 2025. Let's shift the focus over to another idea that Eno put out there. I hadn't thought about this as something that Major League Baseball could do, but we've seen it now in the NBA, in-season tournaments. And you were thinking along the lines of a single elimination tournament, maybe this time of year, which I think could be a good way to get people excited about the September push for playoff spots. I was starting to think about it from the perspective of what incentives would you want to put on it to make it feel different than a regular season game
money,
that is awkwardly structured. Yeah.
If you're giving them some sort of cup or something, like, do people care about it? I mean, there is the joke in the NBA of like, you know, should the Lakers raise a banner for that in-season championship, you know? And the answer is probably no. But I do also think about August and September in a lot of places where you're losing fandom, you're losing interest, you're losing it to other sports in a lot of key markets. And I just thought the schedule makers hate the idea, and they hate me for even bringing it up, because what you have to do is like leave certain days open on the calendar. And then you play it's a 1-game tournament, which is also not really a baseball thing. But I don't know, like if it's 1-game tournaments, like the Pirates could win it all. If it's just a bunch of 1-game tournaments and like they're having to use skis in each of these games and stuff. And what they do in the NBA, the way this works is everything but, I don't know, the last 2 games or something counts in the regular season standings. Right. Yeah. So there are regular season games that you play until you get to like the semifinals and the finals. And those they have to take off of the regular season. But the incentive for the organization is clear. You'd think that you'd get pretty good attendance at a game that's like, hey, it's the Pirates against whoever for the in-season tournament, for all the marbles, whatever the marbles may be. So I don't actually think you need to give an organizational incentive. I don't think you need to be like, this is for draft picks, or I don't think you need to do that. I think you might need to give a player incentive. So anybody who wins gets $50,000 bonus. So the players are into it.
Yeah, I don't know if the fans care. Like that would make.
You don't think they would even show anymore? Up?
Well, I think they would just they would show up as much as they would in the regular season. I just think that feels like the regular season for them. There's something that's kicking around in my head that maybe could work here, especially if it is lined up with some of the expansion talks. Like, I think this would make it work better. So if 2 more teams were added, there was 32 teams, then the season were able to naturally drop to 154 or something because of the number of teams that travel and stuff. That I'd say keep 8 days, keep those as flexible days now within the same length of the season. So don't load the opening day to the final day of the season should be the same length, but it's 8 days you can now work
so
with.
8 more days to play with, yeah.
And so now then if it goes to 4 team divisions, it'd be 4 team divisions as opposed to 3 5 team divisions. That would also like mix up like what wild cards mean. That we wouldn't be able to do it. We'd have to change the playoffs again now. So what if you did you had like an open series, so like it's a series in the middle in those 2 places where you don't know who you're playing yet, and then at that point whoever's like the 3rd and 4th place teams in the divisions, they go in division, and you get like, if the 4th place team wins, they get an extra thing to add on to putting them in position.
Oh, like a tiebreaker
like,
or something.
It could change. Yes, it could
series.
It could tiebreak. It could change seeding. Like you get a little extra boost to seeding at the end of or it could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. That kind of thing. That's interesting too. And then you play against the team that you're chasing, like in your division. So like one could help you win the division at the end of the year. One could help you move up a spot and maybe make the playoffs if you didn't. And then they're in division and they're rivalries. So there's a little bit of already that blood. And then you just save some of your in division games for that. That is like something that is maybe something to build on. Maybe not as exciting as we would want it to be, but it'd be a flexible series that they can just plug in. Like you two teams are playing at this time, and then you just figure out your travel. Like you,
I think they should be more flexible on the TV angle too. I mean, this, like on some level, like who we're seeing on Sunday Night Baseball, like have the Brewers been on Sunday Night Baseball
this year? No.
Yeah.
No, but if you want to see the Tigers, that's every other week.
Yeah. So I don't know. But I like the idea. I mean, this is sort of what we're thinking on the same lines, which is like there is a little bit of a lull in the baseball season that, you know, this sort of like late August, early September, where we haven't gotten into like, okay, you know, now we know races. Who's on the table and who like oh my gosh, this is the minutia of those races. So, and also just there's also just the general problem of, you know, how do we keep fan bases engaged if they're no longer in it in these races? But that's a general sport problem, and I guess the answer we come up with really is just gambling.
No, food, drinks, other things.
Food, drinks, yeah. I mean, the other thing that I've long said is that I think that teams should do more minor league type promotions.
Yeah. I think we've been pushing that for a long time now, and I think the popularity of the Savannah Bananas should be driving that home. People like entertainment, right? And you don't have to go all the way to banana level, but you had this blueprint for the last 40 plus years of minor league baseball that you could have taken entertainment aspects from that. You
know what they've done instead is like there is a tried and true, like basically, like I live in Palo Alto and there's nothing cool in Palo Alto. And the reason there's nothing cool in Palo Alto is that the real estate is so expensive that the only thing you can do is something that's worked everywhere else, you know?
True.
So, you know, you only get GOTS or you get whatever thing has worked somewhere else and it just shows up. You don't get like, oh, I've got this little idea and it may not work, but let's give it a try because it's kind of cool. You know, don't get that. So, you know, that's what the major leagues is like for me when I go to a game. You only get let's turn the music up louder because that worked in LA. Let's have like, you know, booming music between sound and make it more like, oh, that's worked in the NBA. What's worked in the NBA? Oh, they play music really loud between all the timeouts and stuff. And it's like booming and rocking. What else has happened? We now have like in-park DJs. And then we have these in-park DJs. I like DJ Umami in San Francisco, but like, you know, that they're playing the big music. And now we've had, I don't know if they're doing this in other places. In San Francisco, we now have like these two people that are standing on the dugouts that are like introducing things and like, you know, trying to keep the vibe going.
The MCs, like stadium hosts.
Yeah,
they've got those other places. I think
but that's not what I'm talking about.
Places.
I'm talking about like a chipping contest off of the top of the dugout. I'm talking about like, you know, the kind of stuff you see in the minor leagues. You know, like Jello shots. They don't have to have alcohol in them, but like, you know, like could you like put 20 Jello shots in front of two people, you know, and be like, who can finish these quicker? You know, like just Jello. You know,
just,
like whatever.
Just little things.
I've seen non-alcoholic beer, you know, chugging contests and like, you know, there's like different things you can do that are not that you could take from the minor leagues that you just have to take a little bit of a chance. You know, like you have to take a little bit of a chance.
Well, I think the whole idea too, people push back like every game counts. Every game counts. We understand that, but there are times, mostly all of August and May, where no matter what, how much you say that, it doesn't feel that way. The players don't feel that way. The fans don't feel that way. So why are we keep saying, like, honestly, giving the players a little blow? The fact that, like, for example, the Savannah Bananas have their like their meme game, as I would call it, the game that doesn't really matter at all, where they're doing crazy stuff. And then they play kind of normal baseball sometimes too for normal games, like normal-ish. There's still trick shots and stuff. Like, that's a blow for the players as well. Like, I don't feel so like I need to loosen up a little bit because you can just be like all year, when that is one of the major reasons that people are getting so fatigued and burnt out as well. So it'd be nice for that
player
for them
chipping
to go have
contest in between
or something
innings.
like just one game every once in a while. It's like a special night that if you're at home on a certain time of the week, there's like an event that you can look forward to. That's fun.
Tuesdays suck, do something crazy on a Tuesday.
They did in Milwaukee this year. They had an alumni home run derby. So there was a game about a month or so ago, kind of, again, right in this like post-trade deadline, near trade deadline window, where there's a little break where you're like, all right, season's been going on for a long time. If your team hasn't been exciting, happened to be a year where the Brewers are just going crazy, but they brought back like Ricky Week. Well, Ricky Weeks is one of the coaches. They brought Corey Hart, Prince Fielder, Ryan Braun. They drafted teams, and it was awesome. They started the game at 3 on a Friday, which is they don't never do that. They don't play the afternoon games in Milwaukee on a Friday. It's basically like a Wrigley or a makeup thing only. They started the game at 3. The Derby started at like 6:30, and they televised it right off of the game. So I happened to just catch it.
And your ticket got you both
watching the game. Yeah, ticket got you both that day, and it was a Friday game against the Marlins that would have been a pretty bad draw otherwise. But it drew really well.
Yeah.
And now I think it went so well, every team's going to try it.
Now every team's going to do it, which is cool. It's cool. But I'm just saying, like, take more chances and we'll have more variety of these types of things to do. Then you won't all be like, okay, now all of us have to have a alumni home run derby,
I like that idea. If we could throw this out there for the powers that be, start by tacking on an event before or after that is like that people would come
other than a concert. Everyone's doing concerts,
other than a concert.
Right?
Non-conference are crazy. The setup's crazy. The way that it affects the field is crazy. I understand the draw for that, but like it's just like some sort of baseball related thing. I mean, in 2018 we had Fort Day, and before a day game, I played Fortnite with a YouTuber friend of mine, a guy who was in one of the he's a actor, and he's one of the Hamilton Broadway productions, and then Ninja was up on the scoreboard. He didn't come in person, but us 3 played in person, and he played with us up on the board.
That's pretty
We got
fun,
350 people there.
Yeah,
just sitting watching us in front. We ran an esports tournament. We were terrible because it was so bright we couldn't see our screens. It was like we did our best, but it was so.
It's the kindling
fun.
of an idea. Plus, it's just different. It's just different. That's
different.
what I'm saying. Taking a chance,
and it's a way to like, I don't know, have a K-pop Demon Hunters sing along before a game or something. Like,
exactly.
There's a lot of things you can do because you have a big stadium, you have a bunch of seats.
My kids would want to go to that,
and it could be anything. So like, that's what I'm saying. And then watch the game before or after, or you have to go to the game in order to do the other thing. It's a great way to cross over. And it doesn't like take away from the sanctity of the game itself, and the players aren't using too much energy and they don't have to participate. Like some guys can, but it has nothing to do with their ability to play baseball, which is where the sticking point is every time. So if we can avoid that to start, maybe that'll loosen people up to try other things later. So I love that. Go Brewers.
So yeah, I mean, I know that fireworks and concerts have worked, but like, there's got to be other things that work too.
Yeah. We've seen this since the 70s. Let's try something new,
Right.
It's doable. You just got to put your mind to it. All right, so in-season tournaments, probably not yet. We haven't quite cracked it, but maybe at some point in the future, we'll see something along those lines. Hope it's done in a way that makes sense. Don't make it weird. Like, just make it make sense.
Oh, it'll be weird. I mean, you don't really do tournaments like that.
No.
Oh God.
All right, it's time for Eno's favorite segment. It's been
I'm
6
already
weeks.
Nervous.
You won last time. Season series is 4-1 favoring Trevor in Name That Dude. The way it works, I provide a series of clues about a mystery player. Eno and Trevor can guess after each clue. First person to identify that player is the winner. Very simple game, very fun. But yeah, 4-1 Trevor on the season. That means we got to play. I mean, we'll see how today goes. We got to play enough times to at least give Eno a chance to win the season series. So
no, we don't. I'm not winning.
He's like, I'm just going to tank today, and then we don't have to play ever again. It's over. All right, name that dude for today. I was born August 3rd, 1983 in Pikeville, Kentucky. Still no one off of date of birth
Aren't
and
there
location
people
of
listening that are like, know where people were born?
If you are listening to the show and you were also born in Pikeville, Kentucky, I've actually looked that place up. because it was on almost a place I moved to for reasons. It is a small town, so I would venture a guess if you are from there, you absolutely named that player right off the top. I was drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks in the 16th round of the 2004 draft out of the University of Virginia. Made my major league debut May 16th, 2007.
Is that like
I can't remember
Ryan
his
Zimmerman?
first name.
It's not Ryan Zimmerman.
Is this Cole Mentor?
It's not Cole Mentor.
Okay.
Cole Mentor is from a town called Homer, Michigan, of all places. I'd get the.
He gives up the homer.
I had to cover the Diamondbacks a long time ago, so it's a random
Okay.
D-backs fact. All right, next clue. My big league career spanned 13 years. I played my final big league game in 2019 with the Colorado Rockies. I finished my career with 298 home runs.
Like Vinny Castilla wasn't drafted by the. No, he's not. He's obviously not from Kentucky. Maybe he is. Don't think he is.
No, not Vinny
298.
Castilla. Any guesses, Trevor?
Michael Kadire.
Not Michael Kadire. I think the soft clue. That's kind of like the right vibe. Like you're going in the right general direction. This might be one of the hardest name that dudes we've done so
But
far.
like Steve, this is Steve Finley is older than this, so this is more recent than that.
This is more recent than that.
Am I thinking outfielder? What am I thinking?
I played
290 is
both corner infield spots.
Oh, all right.
Yep, spent time at both corner infield spots. My career teams in the big leagues include Arizona, Colorado, Baltimore, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Washington, and
Jesus.
New York with the Yankees. But the longest consecutive tenure for this player with one team was with Arizona at the beginning of his career.
Oh, it's Headley. Chase Headley.
It's not Chase Headley.
No, come on. He's younger. I don't think he's that old yet. It's close.
My best season was in 2009 when I hit 44 homers and stole 24 bases, but I also led the league in strikeouts that season as
Mark
well
Reynolds.
as Mark Reynolds.
It.
Yes, the strikeouts. And also, I gave up a homer to Mark Reynolds in St. Louis.
How far did he hit it?
So far. and then Yachty got me right after. I was like, oh, come on. And that one barely got out.
Yachty doesn't hit homers. Dang.
Yeah, Mark Reynolds was a like kind of sneaky good power hitter. Like, I mean, not sneaky like in that regard, but like,
But he also like led the league in strikeouts like 5 straight years in the middle
he
there.
four in a row
Diamondbacks
at
are
his
just
peak.
like a non, like there's no part of my brain that's dedicated to the Diamondbacks. Sorry.
But
Yeah,
like
True.
sneaky
I
in
said
terms
Headley.
of longevity.
Headley was the Padres. No, he wasn't even
Headley's
the Diamondbacks.
Padres, yeah.
Yeah, Headley was the Padres.
I was going back to like the old D-backs that won it all.
Yeah, those the purple D-backs.
Yeah.
01? Is that how long ago that was already?
Like Reynolds played, in my defense, like I'm not trying to like erase a whole franchise off the front of the my defense, like Reynolds did not play for great D-backs teams.
Yeah, but he played for 8 different teams, man. He was around for a while. The sneaky part was the total number of home runs for his career. The power was obvious.
Was that
power,
the same year? Was he drafted the same year with Scherzer? Or a little bit, a year or two before?
04. That might be the Scherzer draft.
Maybe 06. I think he was with Verlander. Maybe a year after before.
2004. Who was drafted that year? Matt Bush went 1-1 that year. Verlander was the second pick in that draft.
Yeah.
That was the Billy Butler, Jared Weaver, Wade Townsend, Glenn Perkins, Phil Hughes draft. Yeah.
Country
Breakfast.
Another great nickname. Man, I gotta
An
do
all-time
that
great.
video, too.
An all-time great baseball nickname. Country Breakfast.
What do you
All
think
right.
Billy Butler's doing right this moment?
Eating breakfast.
Probably just
Second
slathering in
breakfast.
his own barbecue sauce.
It could be, depending on where he is in the world, it could be barbecue
hit,
time. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's biscuits and gravy. He's got a nice plate of biscuits and gravy right now. That's how I imagine Billy
I
Butler.
can swing it.
That rotation for behind him was Dan Herron and Max Scherzer, who hadn't become Max Scherzer yet, John Garland, and Doug Davis.
Doug Davis.
I do not remember Doug Davis.
Doug Davis, great Brewer pull right there, man. Doug Davis. There was
a Brewer's name. It's Doug Davis.
There's a story about Doug Davis going into some bar in northern Wisconsin in some off season and just saying, "My arm's cashed," and like I wish I could source it better, but that's a great thing that you want to hear about one of your pitchers in the middle of the off season. Just walks, yeah, my arm's cashed.
I'm done.
You're like, but you got 2 years left on your deal, Doug. My arm's cashed.
Well, I get paid either way. Who cares?
Yeah.
Further details on that story forthcoming once we can confirm them. JP Hornstra got some details back about the Tiger Stadium incident I described, where I thought I saw a person fall onto the field.
Oh, he found something.
Well, he talked to Mike DiGiovanna, who covered the Angels for a long time and covered that game. Mike did not remember a person falling out of the stand specifically, but confirmed that it was so hot and humid that literally anything was possible that day. He remembered how horrible the conditions were. And then, of course, I looked at the stadium, the old pictures, the overhang they had for the second deck at Tiger Stadium covered a ton of the seats up until the outfield wall. So you absolutely could have fallen from the second deck at that part of the ballpark, hit the ground and been fine and lived to tell the tale. So
really, it's that much of an overhang.
Yes, I should have put the visual up for today.
Wow.
It's a really odd stadium design from Old Tiger Stadium. So my brain might actually have this one right, but despite JP's help, which I appreciate, we do not have a confirmation from someone else yet.
I think the money's on Fever Dream still.
I think the money's shifting. I think the money's on Derek saw someone fall out of the stands as a kid, and it really happened because they were that drunk, and they didn't fall as far as we thought because the stadium had a really unique design. But if you were there, we're still looking for people that could confirm my story. You can join our Discord with the link in the show description. You can find us on Bluesky. Saris.bscott@social. Trevor is I am Trevor May.bscott@social. I am DVR.bscott@social. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.